All right, let's do this.
Welcome back to Forging Champions, a Solforge digital card game podcast. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes, and I'm joined by my illustrious co-host.
Jake Almighty, the greatest.
He's the greatest. I like that.
Yep.
I don't know if you know anything about Pompey the Great, but he also nicknamed himself, and his nickname has stuck through the annals of history. We can only hope the same holds true for you.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. That would be an acceptable legacy.
That'd be pretty cool. So I want to start all our podcasts with the same question. Jake, how many more cards do you need for a full play set of set 1?
I think roughly around 6. 6 cards.
Okay. I've almost caught you then.
Yeah, you're getting close, for sure, I know that.
I'm up to 8. I need 2 Woebringers, 2 Phoenix, a Watchman, a Zix, a Champion, and a Mutant. I picked up a Mutant and another card I needed last night. I don't remember what it was. I actually got the Mutant for going 2-1 in a constructed queue. So that was
Out of
really
a
exciting.
normal pack, wow.
Yeah, I love when that
That's
happens.
pretty lucky. Yeah, that's great.
That's the
Consolation prize that actually ends up filling out your collection.
best. Exactly. All right, and something pretty huge happened over the weekend and into this week, and continues to happen. Any ideas what that is?
I'm thinking you have to be referring to the tournament that I don't like to talk about.
Nope, I'm not. I'm referring to tournament rankings were posted.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Did you
my
like how I
bad.
did that? That was pretty.
Yeah, good work. You totally set me up there.
Yeah, I know. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, we had Stoneblade decided to release some tournament statistics. Top 10 most wins of all time, longest win streaks. So I got to start here. Were you as shocked as I was to see that the most constructed wins all time was 500?
A little bit. That seems like a lot to me in the limited time that the queue has been around.
Yes, I was pretty stunned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so congratulations to Technonaut for somehow getting 500 wins. I hope that means he went close to 500 and 0. Because if it doesn't, oh, wow, he spent a lot of time in the queue, which is fun, so that's fine. I mean, you're spending a lot of time doing something you love. But man, that's a lot of time in the queue.
Yeah, seriously. Like, what if his win rate was like 10%? You know? Like,
That
a
would be
lot of
hilarious. I spent $6,000 on tickets. Oh, boy. That would be a lot of time. I'm sure it was not the case. I'm sure Technonaut did very well.
I'm sure he did just fine, yeah.
So congratulations, sir, for getting the top. I was wondering, though, as cool as this is, would you consider this to be exactly what you would like to see from Stoneblade, or do you have any minor suggestions of how it could be done a little bit differently?
I mean, no, it's definitely not exactly what I'd like from them. I would like to see, a chart based either on win rate or some kind of elo system if they set that up. But I think it's a good first step because I know they're very busy and they don't have a lot of time to devote to non-essential stuff. So I think this is a good step in the right direction, and then hopefully we'll get more in depth on the stats tracking and all that as time goes on.
Yep, I agree with that. The one area I would expand that is to say I would really love to see that list expanded to top 100. I know that's a lot, but there's a lot of Solforge players, and I think if they're going to go by straight amount of wins, I think it's going to be really hard for most people to crack that queue. And I like the fact that it really motivates you to have to play a lot. I mean, that's good for the community. That's good for Stoneblade to get people in that queue playing. But at the same time, I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a dismotivator because it's just so hard to crack that queue.
Yeah,
but
you really need to play a lot.
A big list, I think it would be a little more fun. So hopefully they'll do that and expand it. But either way, I was really excited to see that. I think it's something that's been needed.
For sure. Definitely.
All right. Before we continue, I wanted to give something that I've noticed. I'm going to ask you if you've noticed the same thing. This is
Okay.
what I have noticed out of the constructed queue. That different times of day lead to different results. And so I'm going to tell you what I found to be the case, and then you tell me if you think that's accurate.
Okay.
So what I have found is that during the day, during the peak hours, you're pretty much getting a straight queue. If you are 1-0, you're usually playing someone else who has a win. If you have 2 wins, you're usually playing someone with 2 wins. And then if you play in the middle of the night, you get insane variance. So you can have 0 wins and play someone with 2. You can have 2 wins and play someone with 0. Have you noticed that to be the case?
Absolutely. The system definitely works better during peak time when there's lots of players for it to pick from, and it goes completely haywire once that population decreases.
Right. And so my point is this, that I feel like if you think you are amazing and you want to sort of exploit the fact that you're going to be able to take advantage of under-paired people, playing at night is actually a great time to play. But if you are one of those people that's trying to go 2-1 or maybe even 1-2, during the day might be a better time for you because there's a less chance you're going to get crushed. I've played people at night who I know are not quite. They don't have quite the collection or quite the experience, and we'll talk in the Steam chat, and they'll say, "Oh, Tiny, good game. I can't. Were you really only 0-2?" And I was like, "No, I was 2-0." And they're like, "What? You were 2-0? How's that possible?"
Yep. Sure.
And so I think it's a little bit dangerous if you are not a top player to wander into the queue in the off-peak hours. And if you are a top player, it's actually a good time to exploit the queue. I've gotten a lot of my packs late night as I'm playing under-paired people.
Yep. I do the same. I play a lot during off-peak hours, and it's generally not terribly difficult in my experience.
Yep, I agree. I have actually gotten a couple 0-3s during off-peak hours.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, because what happens is the first problem is that I become frustrated when I lose the first one because now I can't get my premium.
Sure.
That's all I'm there for is that premium. Everything after that is just whatever.
Yep. The rest is fluff.
Wow. Actually, it looks like the stream went down for a second. It's back now, but we'll keep going.
Okay.
So yeah, I have gone 3-0 a couple times. It's usually, once I lose one, I'm like, well, this one's pointless now, right? Like now it's just grinding out a ticket.
Yeah, it is because you're locked in on that normal pack no matter what happens at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So grinding out a ticket is a frustrating experience. I don't really enjoy that. I mean, I enjoy it. Let me rephrase that. But I'm usually not in there to grind out a ticket. I'm in there to expand my collection.
Yep.
So
it's almost worth just conceding those matches.
I've considered it, except for that I need the tickets. So then I won't be able to play at all.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But
if you had a
believe me,
huge surplus, then I would say might be worth considering
there's been a couple
conceding.
times where I've said I think I might just resign this, and then I've stopped myself and been like, no, and it's really happened when someone takes forever, and it's like,
yeah, if they're slow, I can't stand that.
Exactly.
Drives
And one of the
me
reasons
mental.
why I've been able to grind the queue with such success is that it moves so quickly, and especially with the decks I've been playing are aggro decks, and so I can play a whole tournament in oftentimes less than 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then if someone takes forever, their game takes longer than the whole entirety of the tournament usually takes.
Yep.
And that really makes me angry, to be honest.
Yep. Drives me mental. I'm not there to play 60-minute matches. Not 60 minutes, but
Yeah,
you know
exactly. I'm not there to play an actual tournament. This isn't a tournament setting. This is just a queue.
Yep. Definitely.
Okay, well, let's move on to some minor thing that happened over the weekend that a couple people heard about.
Oh boy.
Some sort of event happened.
Something.
Yeah, so we had the Forge Watch Invitational this weekend, which, first of all, let me say thanks to the Forge Watch team They did a great job putting on an excellent tournament. It was a lot of fun. They did a great job as usual. Is just the bottom
Yeah,
line.
they really did an amazing job when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed at how well they're doing with all this. It feels like without them, the tournament scene would be much less viable.
Yeah, I'm not sure the tournament scene would actually exist without them when it
Right. I
comes
mean, we
down
would
to
have
it.
the queues, but the queues are not quite
Yeah,
enough for me personally. For some people, they
Q
may
doesn't cut
say,
it.
no, the queues are exactly enough. But for me, I need something more than just a queue.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's start here. How did you do, Jake?
Um, well, that's actually okay. I was gonna say a long story, but it's actually a very short story because I lost on stream with John Fiorillo
Oh,
commentating.
interesting. I didn't
Oh yeah,
realize
they
that
brought him
part.
as a special guest for my game, and I managed to lose against Seomon in roughly 7 minutes.
Both of your games or one of your games?
Both in the same period of 7 minutes,
Wow,
and then the
that's
match was
impressive.
over.
That's impressively quick. At least you get in and out and get your dirty work done. That's
Yep.
impressive.
Yeah, that's an upside. Um, uh,
We're looking for upsides here, people. We're
that's
looking
right.
hard.
That's right. We're taking what I can get. And then so that was over, and then I played JMO in the losers bracket, and he beat me in a little longer than 7 minutes. It was probably around like 9 to 10.
Hmm.
So
Well, yeah,
and then I was out. That was it.
that was it.
That
Well,
was it.
that's unfortunate. Let's talk about this. What were your expectations going into the event?
Well, I think my deck is actually quite good. I didn't get a lot of practice in, which I like to have a lot of practice generally. But so I wasn't expecting to do amazing, to be honest, because I hadn't put the work in when it comes down to it. But I would have liked to have done better than I did for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's one thing I did notice about you as well as my teammate was the one thing that I always consider about you is you're always on, you're always building, playing, you're testing, usually even more than me, and I feel like I test too much. And you just weren't around a lot of time. I'd be like, oh, I wonder if Jake's gonna, be back from his honeymoon or whatever you were doing, and you just weren't around. And I was like, oh no, my teammate's not around. What am
Yeah,
I
I
gonna
know.
do?
It was very bad timing for me on a personal level to have the invitational
Yeah,
at
how
at
dare
this
you
time.
get married at that time?
I know, right? So that worked
Uh,
out kind of unfortunately, but it is what it is.
yeah, exactly. I mean, real life has to come first at some point. So,
Yep. This was
uh,
one of those times.
yeah,
All
exactly.
right, so how about you? How did you do? Because I think
Wait,
you
wait,
did
I'm not
slightly
ready.
better.
I'm not done with you yet.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So
my
I have
bad.
another
Go
question
ahead.
for you. So if your expectations were a little low, that's okay. What deck did you play though?
I played NT Control, built differently than everyone else in the event did. They all played, based around the Grimgaunts, which I disagreed with because you generally need to play, I think, better cards against the WWP decks that are running around right now. So I played like a lot of Blightwalkers, stuff like that. I also played with Scorchmane Dragons, which is, I finally got some, so I kind of had to. In my opinion, that was just something that had to happen. Uh,
Oh boy.
so I chose to do that, and I think I was fine with that decision overall.
Okay. I know when I saw your list, thought I had some concerns about the Scorchmanes. That they felt a little bit slow.
They were a little bit on the slow side. A little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they were why you didn't win or anything like that. It's just when I glanced at your list, I thought, oh, that's an interesting choice. I wonder if that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, they were a little bit slow, but as long as you didn't get absolutely run over, then you were generally fine because the 12-12 is so huge in player level 2. So as long as you draw the 12-12, you can usually regain the tempo back that you lost, and then you're fine. But as it worked out, in my match against Seomon, he played 6 Wirewood Patriarchs, by turn 2.3, and I actually died on that turn 2.3. So
Yeah, it's pretty tough if your opponents. And that's the interesting thing about the Patriarch decks is that like you can build them in a couple different ways. You can go all in on them. You can go partially all in. And if you go all in on them and then hit your Patriarchs, you pretty much win. Like it's just
yeah,
a nut
oh yeah,
draw. There's not much you
yeah,
can do.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, his list was good. I liked his list on some several levels, but yeah, I wish it could have worked out better for me.
yeah, I know when I saw his list and that I was playing him, um, I was happy about the matchup because it felt like for at least the mirror that my list had some slight advantages over his list. Like he was running meta sculpts, I believe.
Yeah, and you had bashers in the same slot, right?
Exactly, and I feel like meta sculpts in this particular meta aren't as good because you're leaving behind dudes that are decent that are still getting buffed.
They're gonna get buffed up, yeah.
Yeah, so
Even if it isn't right away, it will be in the next player level once the WWP ranks up, right?
exactly, and
So,
so I thought I would have the advantage there, but it also down to in every mirror it comes down to draw a lot of the time. You know, if he gets all his patriarchs or I get all mine or one of us gets all the sentinel blowouts, it's going to go that person's way.
yep, yep, for sure.
I know in our last game I was drawing really badly, and I
Yep,
was like, okay, well, you know, he's pretty much got me here unless I have some god draw and he has a terrible draw, and then that's exactly what happened. And it was like,
yep.
oh, now I win. And it was just, it was funny for me, and I'm sure he's sitting there going, what the heck? This is ridiculous. I had this thing in the bag. It's just the frustration of the mirror match. That mirror match is nearly always a frustrating experience for one or
It's
both
just how it
people.
works with mirrors, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so as far as how I did pretty well. I ended up making the top 8, so that was exciting. I
Hmm.
was happy about that.
Yeah,
Um,
you won the whole thing, right? Well,
yeah,
or
I
part
did.
of
I
it, at
did
least.
win my bracket. Yeah, so that was good. I was worried that last game I had PTK. I saw his list and wasn't really sure what to make of it.
Yep.
It felt like a list I should beat, but it was a list I hadn't tested against even one time. PTK is very good, so I
Hmm.
assumed that him playing that list meant something. That it wasn't a random list, but it was some list he thought was going to be specifically good for this event, and that really terrified me.
Yep.
But luckily, I was able to pull that one out and to come through as the champion of the bracket.
Of the bracket, yep, yep.
And like you, I had fairly low expectations going in. I did very little actual testing. I
Yep.
mostly was in card acquisition mode, just grinding out the queue because my collection was really small, and I knew that once the top 8 list came out, card acquisition was going to be much slower because a lot of people
Just gonna copy the decks
were
and
going to be copying
saturate
the
the
decks.
queue. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just trying to get as many cards as I possibly could into my mitts before that happened. And I did sort of like right at the end, I did a little bit of actual play testing. Like once you
Hmm.
got back in town, I started play testing with Ming a fair amount. He crushed me a whole bunch of times in a row because I had gotten cute and took Botanamates out of the deck and was like, I don't need them. I'm just going to use Bashers. And then that didn't work against Thundersoar. So
Yeah. I tried really hard actually to get Thundersaurs for this event. But that didn't happen. He became my latest Scorchmane Dragon.
you still have 0, right?
I still have 0 Thundersaurs, so hopefully Card of the Day goes live soon and I can just pick those up.
Yeah, but you're having quite the hopeful dream that card of the day is going to start as Thundersoar.
Yes, okay, it's a hopeful dream, but I don't think it's a ridiculous hopeful dream. I think he's a really popular card right now that a lot of people want to play with, and they don't have him because he's new. So I think they might start with Thundersaur.
I think they might too. I think it could cut either way. That they could say, listen, if we don't make a Thundersaur, everyone and their mom wants Thundersaur. People are going to buy premiums just to get Thundersaur. Or they could say, we can make Thundersaur card of the day and make $12 bajillion today.
Right now. Yep.
Yep. I know if it was me and it was my decision, I think I would just put Thundersaur up. That way, also, people stop complaining that, the meta's unfair. Some people have Thundersaur, some don't. So I think I would handle it that way. But I could see both ways being legit and, both ways being a way to do it. So we'll have to see what they decide to do. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it could go either way. I'm hoping they put it up because I'd like to get some. But
Yep. I have my 3, so I'm hoping they put up Phoenix so I can finish that. But I don't think they will.
No, I think. Well, I mean, they did say they were going to do the new cards first, right? So I think they're going to do a rotation of all the new cards before they do.
I think so too, but I still consider
Phoenixes.
the Phoenix a new card since I just got my first one recently.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's one way to look at it, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. And also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but they did release, or Forge Watch released, the top 8 bracket for this weekend. And there's actually a bracket challenge. So I'd like to go ahead and try to pick the bracket with Jake here, and we'll see what we come up with. So we're going to take a brief second away from our game and pick this bracket.
All right. I have it loaded up here.
All right. So who do we think is going to win between Whitefire and Blue Decks?
Do you want me to go first? You want to
you can
voice
go
your
first.
opinion? Okay.
I know who I'm going to pick.
Okay. I pick Blue Decks here because I watched him beat a whole lot of Wirewood Patriarch decks on the day that he made it through. He had to go through endless of them. And I haven't seen Whitefire's deck play a lot with the Tempest edition and all that, but I think Blue Decks should have a fairly easy time going through them when it comes down to it. He's gonna grow Devourers, and I think he's just gonna steamroll over them.
When I look at these decks, the big problem that I see for Whitefire is that nearly every card in his deck is easily culled.
Yeah. He has so much low power stuff,
Right,
which is good with Patriarch. But.
Exactly. He seems to be all in on the Patriarch wagon, which is cool, and I like the deck. But I think I will also take Blue Decks. I think having all he has to do is level those culls, and I think he should be okay. But I could easily see Whitefire winning, and I'm kind of rooting for Whitefire to win because it's such a cool list.
Yeah, his deck is very interesting in my opinion.
But I'm also going to take Blue Decks in that top spot.
All right.
All right. How about the next game? Tiny Grimes versus Dark Soul SP.
Well, I mean, one of these players is a scrub, and
that is really rude to call Dark Soul a scrub on a program like
that's what
this.
I meant. That's what I meant. Yep. Okay. All joking aside, though, I think Dark Soul has a pretty big edge here.
Yeah, I agree. When they announced that it was going to be a bottom player versus a top player, I looked through the lists and I said, all right, I think I have the list advantage over all of them except for Dark Soul,
yeah.
who is running the counter to my deck.
Yeah, his list I think beats yours most of the time. It's just how it's going to work out.
Yeah, his list definitely beats mine. So it's going to be a question of, can I concoct some sort of game plan going in that gives me at least I at least want like a 40-60 shot to win. Maybe I can get some decent draws and outskill him at a couple points and try to pull off a win that way. But I think on list alone, I think Dark Soul has a rather large advantage, actually. I don't even think it's a small advantage. So I'm definitely terrified, and I'm definitely picking Dark Soul here to progress.
We'll work on that matchup this week and see what we can do. But
I'll get my testing partner on that one.
Yeah.
And, hey, testing partner, you might want to acquire some Thundersaurs at some point.
It's card of the day, man. It's coming.
I hope your
might even be today.
I hope your optimism is correct. All right, here's one I haven't actually looked at. Pesh versus Holy Llama. Who do we think is going to win this one?
Okay, I mean this is interesting. Personally, I pick Holy Llama. I think Holy Llama's not that Pesh isn't a great player, but I know Holy Llama pretty well, and I've played against him a lot, and I think he's going to take it down.
I also like Holy Llama a lot. Played with him a lot. Think he's great. And I think Pesh takes it down.
Interesting. See if we finally disagree here.
And here's my reasoning.
Okay.
Both are running the full Thundersaur suite.
Mm-hmm.
Pesh has Botanimate, and Holy Llama is hoping his opponent doesn't draw Thundersaur.
Okay, fair enough. The other side of that coin is that those plant tokens may get buffed into relevance
Yes,
by Holy Llama after the Botanimates come down. Because
definitely.
that definitely happens. You end up with, some 9, 10 plant 10, 10 plant tokens over on the other side.
Yep. And he's got Mossbeard Patriarch to heal them up. I
Yep.
think both of these lists are very good. I think both of these players are very good. And the only reason I am picking Pesh over is more answers to Thundersaur. I just feel like without straight removal, both of these decks are going to be see Thundersaur, play Thundersaur, and they each have 3, and so it's just going to be who can get one to stick and get the most breakthrough damage.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. He needs to be really careful with those Botanimates. I would basically consider Botanimate unplayable in the final turn of each player rank because Holy Llama's deck will level up and he'll be able to draw a ranked up Wirewood Patriarch the next turn. So,
Uh, Depends. Like if there's a runaway Thundersaur, I'll take giving him a 7/7 Botanic seedling over like a 24/12 Thundersaur.
well, I mean, yeah, for sure. You got to be the runaway Thundersaur also has decent ability to be stopped just because there's going to be so many large sized creatures on the other side of the board. So,
Yeah, and I mean it can be Thundersaur in front of Thundersaur. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. I think it's the mirror I most want to see because it's
yeah, this is the
basically
one I want to watch.
one guy running removal in Botanimate, and the other guy saying, I'm going to run Mossbeard instead. I'm going to block your Thundersaur with mine, and I'm going to heal my Thundersaur.
Yep.
So I think it's actually going to be a really interesting matchup. I could easily see Holy winning it. Holy has crushed me with this deck a bunch of times, so I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him win it. But I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Pesh just because I feel like he has more answers for Thundersaurs.
All right, I got Llama's back. We'll see who wins.
All right, the last matchup is between Table 1 and Xtoff. Xtoff is running a Tarsus deck. I was a little bit surprised to see that make it through, so good for him. And then Table 1 is running a very, I think, unusual version of the UA Robots deck.
Yeah, I would agree that it's unusual. He has some very interesting numbers mixed in there.
To me, if I was running his build, I wouldn't even run robots because it's Arc Flight and Sentinel. To me, are the reason why you run the robots.
Yeah,
I would
those are
just
the
pull them.
blowout robots, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, at that point, you're not
say no
running
blowout.
robots. I wouldn't have even run this deck, to be honest, had I only had one Arc Flight and one Sentinel in there.
Yeah, it seems like a really odd choice to me.
So I think it's going to be interesting. He does have the 2 Justicars, so that will be the counter to the Deathweaver. So I think a lot of it is going to come down to how often can he find his Justicars. If he's finding them both every player level, I will give the edge to Table 1. If he doesn't, I think he won't be able to get the spread as much because he doesn't have those Arc Flights, which would be amazing in this matchup because he's not running
Yeah.
Cull.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
he could
So they
just
basically
spam
can't be
them
killed
out.
the turn they come out. Yep.
Yeah, so I think actually is Table 1 running Botanimate is the other question. So he does have 2. And he has 3 Gemhide Bashers. So he's really all in on quick removal, which will actually be perfect against the Leafkin, against the Deathweaver with buffs. So I consider this a fairly even match. I think I'm going to go with Xtoff just because I feel like Table 1's build is unusual. I don't really understand how it wins, but obviously it does because he's in the top 8.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting matchup, I think. And I haven't really even decided who I think is going to win this because it could really go either way. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. If Xtoff can stick a Leafkin and Table One doesn't have a Basher in his hand or a Botanimate, then he's probably going to win because Leafkin on turn one is just brutal. But
Yeah, it seems like a big if to me though. 5 removal cards. Like it feels like he's always going to have removal cards.
you think that until you play a deck like NT with like 15 removal cards and then you don't draw any when you need them. And
Yeah, no, and it happened to me too. I mean, I have the 2 Botanimates, 2 Bashers, so I'm only 1 lower, and
yeah,
almost always when I needed one, it wasn't there, and I was
yeah.
just thinking like, what is happening? I have all this removal for a reason. I could have had different cards in these slots. What are you doing to me?
hmm
All right, so let's go back up to the top then. Oh, who are you taking then?
Um, I'm going to take Xtoff in the end because I think his deck has a better nut draw in the end. Because Table One is missing those arc flights to really go crazy in the early game.
Yep.
I think Xtoff has just a base percentage edge. If neither of them interacts with each other, nobody draws removal, then I think Xtoff wins.
Yep. So I do want to state a caveat here that all 8 of these players are very good, and by me picking one over another is by no means diminishing their skill. I think they're all phenomenal. They all have good deck lists. This is just trying to parse out of these 8 great players who's moving on.
Well, except that Tiny Grimes,
Yeah,
right?
except that guy. That guy's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can't even win his first round matchup against Dark Soul, who you
Yeah.
called a scrub on this show.
I don't, okay, that did not happen.
I don't actually think that's what he intended, but you like how I twist your words. It's lots
Yep,
of fun.
good work.
Okay, so who do we think is going to win between Blue Ducks and Dark Soul? This is a tough one to me.
Oh, right, round two. Okay. See, this gets really interesting because I don't think I've actually seen that match up played, just because so few people played the Necrim version of the Werewood Patriarch decks.
Yep, I agree. I'm really struggling. I mean, the one thing I would say is he doesn't. He being Dark Soul doesn't have a ton of stuff to be culled, but
Yeah.
he's playing 3 culls, 3 Blightwalkers, and Blue Ducks doesn't have that much stuff to be culled or Blightwalkered.
Okay, at the same time, Blightwalker I usually find is a fine card against anything because he's on 6 Grimgons, and
Yeah.
Blightwalker is actually totally fine against Grimgons.
Yep, that is true.
He can control an out of control Devourer that's been buffed into oblivion. But yeah, Cull is definitely going to be subpar. He's not going to be playing those
Yep.
in that match.
And I feel like the Witch won't get played. He'll probably get played on an egg once, and he'll be really excited.
Value.
He'll probably scream out full value at his,
That's
at his
right.
home.
Yep.
I don't know. I really don't know who to pick in this. To me, this is an absolute toss-up. Less of a toss-up in it's an even matchup, and more of a toss-up in I have no idea even how to predict this one because, like you said, I haven't seen this. I don't really have it. I would have to play test this myself.
hmm
Blue Ducks only has 1 Zemus, and this one looks like it could be more of a late game. But Dark Soul doesn't have Zemus either, so that's not really an issue. I don't really know what to say.
I think when push comes to shove, I think I pick Dark Soul.
Let's see if
I
can
could
just,
be totally wrong, but I think I'm gonna go with him.
I'm gonna look at this list one more time before I commit.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Way. I think I am going to go the other way. I'm going to say this. I think that Everflame Phoenix is the best card in these 2 decks, and Everflame Phoenix will win the game. That's what I'm going to go with.
All right.
I would say Thundersaur is the best, except for he has plenty of answers for Thundersaur. Thundersaur is probably not running away against Blue Ducks.
Yeah, he shouldn't have a problem with that.
So I'm going to go
You're
Blue
right.
Ducks.
Phoenix might just win. I should really maybe make that pick myself because I kind of sometimes do that, but
Yeah,
the Phoenix business.
a little bit known for that. All right, so in the semifinals, you have Holy versus Xtoff. So who do you think is going to win in that matchup?
I think Holy Llama has an edge probably.
Okay.
I like his deck a lot. Even though I would like some hard removal in his deck, but he made that choice to run without it and just play maximum power kind of deal. So
Yep.
I can respect that, and I think it'll work pretty well for him.
Yep. I'm gonna go with Pesh. Same kind of thing. I think Weirwood beats Tarsus,
Yeah, I agree with that.
especially if they're running Justicar. So with just 2 Justicars, 3 Botanamates, I feel like he's handling those Deathweavers and Leafkins, and he also has those for he has Botanamate leveled for Devour and Zemus, and I just don't think I think list on list, Xtoff doesn't have a lot of shot at winning this one. But Xtoff might just be really, really skilled with his deck and have some interesting plans for that kind of matchup and be able to push that through.
Yeah, you can always win, even if your list is at a disadvantage.
Yep,
But
I agree.
but yeah, I definitely favor the UA deck over the Death Weavers here.
So you have Blue Decks and Holy in the finals.
I guess I do. Yep.
Who's going to win that?
It's hard to say because Blue Decks has gone through a whole big pile of UA decks on his way here,
Yep.
apparently without trouble completely. Which I understand because I play NT myself and I had probably a 90% win rate against it up
Wow.
until Seoman absolutely demolished me in round 1 on stream in front of 200 people.
Maybe you should have tested against good players instead of me. Maybe that was your problem.
Yeah, maybe that was the problem. You're right, I'll take that into consideration.
There you go.
Take that under
A
advisement.
learning experience for you.
Yeah, I'll do my testing with Ming in the future.
Do it with Seomon.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently. But I think in a vacuum, I'm not a big fan of Blue Dex's list. I'm not. Well, I played NT, but I wasn't on the Grimgod plan. I didn't think that was the best option for this tournament. So I think I'd probably pick Holy Llama.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that I have Blue Decks in the finals. I thought I would have him losing in the first round because I too don't love his list. I had somebody play test his list against me. It went very, very poorly for them. But Blue Decks has certainly shown that he's real good with his list.
Yep, he knows what he's doing. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So I think I'm going to take Pesh. And I'm going to say, actually, let me look at this again. I don't think I'm going to take Pesh because almost every one of his cards can be culled. He's all in. He's got Oracle. He's got Heart Tree. He's got War Walkers.
Yep, he's on all that extra Heart Tree stuff.
Yeah, I think Blue Decks might be able to take the all-in. So I'm going to go Blue Decks. I seriously thought I would pick Blue Decks to lose. If I had myself against Blue Decks, I would have picked myself to win, and instead I'm picking Blue Decks to win it all. So I don't know what's going on here. But apparently Blue Decks is my champion. Who did you have? Holy
Llama.
All right, so there we go.
I got the llamas back.
We'll have to put our picks into the thread that's containing this information.
Right,
Everyone else
yeah,
put
I
your
want my
picks
free
in.
draft after I win.
Make sure you pick Tiny Grimes to win it all, of course, even though Tiny Grimes picked himself to lose in the first round.
As did his playtest partner. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, but his playtest partner doesn't know anything. He lost right away.
Oh, to drop.
That's irrelevant.
Irrelevant, even.
All right, so there's one more thing that I want to talk about before we take some questions from our audience, and that is there's been some hubbub on the forums that, oh my god, the sky is falling, the meta is solved in week after the first tournament. Weirwoods are the best thing that ever lived. We should stop playing the game. What do you think about that, Jake?
I go read the forum, and that happens basically every week. It's something different every time. Okay, for a long time, it was just Zemus. There was, a new, let's nerf Zemus. Zemus is overpowered. Game is unbalanced permanently, while Zemus remains unnerfed, was, I think, my favorite one. But, so those guys have clearly been proved wrong, because Zemus was nowhere to be seen. Well, not nowhere to be seen, but he was not a defining factor in the Invitational. As I personally predicted, despite the fact that I was playing 3, I was not expecting to do well because of Zemus. He was just a good card in my deck that gave me late game options. So, on the topic of the new threads about Wirewood, yes, he's a good card. yes, it's a new hot strategy and it's all over the place because the Invitational just happened and 7 decks made it through, and everyone is copying those lists and going crazy over it. But I think there's a lot of diversity within Wirewood Patriarch decks. In those 7 decks that made it through to the top 8, there are Utera paired with each other faction, first of all. Okay, so every faction combination with Utera and a Wirewood Patriarch setup made it through. So there's automatically going to be at least 3 decks there. There's also 2 different versions of the UA one. There's with robots and there's with the other stuff, like with Synapsis, Oracle, Heart Tree, etc., all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of variety within this Wirewood Patriarch dominance. And I also think there's going to be other decks that come through and show that it's not the whole format, and it's going to get there's going to be plenty of decks. NT Control in 2 or 3 different builds is 100% a deck. It did great at the Invitational considering its representation. Yeah, Wirewood put 7 decks through, but it was also at least 2/3 of the field. It was like 70% of the decks in the whole thing were Wirewood decks.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Wirewood was the easy thing to build. Like, I basically got the new cards, was in card acquisition mode, didn't have them all, just sort of throwing decks together. I started with a Deathweaver deck that did really well. It rode the wave of the constructed queue. Then people figured it out, ran Justicars and crushed it. And so then I moved to Wirewood and was like, oh, okay, this is a little bit harder to counter.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a number of other decks that I was looking at, but I just didn't have time with the meta or with this major tournament coming so soon on the heels of a new playset. So I think what a lot of people did is they took the easy, obvious thing to build and tweaked that and went with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think
you wanted to play Legend of the Shambler, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I would love to play Legend of the
That's
Shambler,
what you
except for
wanted
that
to
it doesn't
play.
win against any other decks. But other than that, yeah, that would be great. But I also want to say this, that I feel like, let's say Weirwood does become a meta-defining card. It is so different than Shapers. It's not an oppressive card. It's just a supplementary card. It's like
a roar.
It's like saying Roar is everywhere, so it's too good, and the meta is defined by Roar. Like, that's just a supplementary card. And there's only 3 of them in the deck. So if you go all in on some sort of Weirwood Patriarch strategy, it's actually really, really risky. Like, you're setting yourself up for total disaster if you don't draw them.
Yeah. It happens a lot with that version that runs all the small power creatures, like the Synapse Oracles, the Heart Trees, etc. Because if you don't draw the Patriarchs, your deck really just sits there and doesn't do much.
Yeah, and I found that to be the case. Like, I had one build where it was like Oracle, General, Tactician, Heart Tree. I even had Mossbeard in it also. I had Ether Hounds, and I was like, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buff all of these dudes, and it's going to be unbeatable. And it was. And then I had a couple games where I didn't draw any Patriarchs, and I'm just sitting there going, oh, wow.
Yeah, you're sitting there with
so
5
bad.
creatures on the board, and the combined power of your board is like 7.
Exactly. And my opponent's like, here is a Zemus 2 and a Predator 2 who's eating your terrible guys. Now I have a Phoenix 3, and I'm like, I have Etherhounds 3 with no buffs. So take that, man. And it just completely fell apart.
Yep.
So I think that's the one side. I think Weirwoods are not an oppressive card. They're merely a supplementary card. So even if they become in every deck, I'd be fine with that. But then on the other side, I really think there's a ton of interesting decks out there that have yet to be made. I think Thundersoar has incredible weaknesses associated with him. I don't think he's just a card that's so good that you can't deal with him. I think he has plenty of downside to him. So I'm fine with him being really good. I really just think that this is so early to be making rash statements about how the meta's solved and the game is terrible.
Yeah, it's downright silly at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even seen a really great Drix deck.
Yeah, and he's going to be huge. At some point, Dravatar is going to make a huge splash with Drix, definitely with Drix, and it is going to be a top deck.
Yep.
And everyone's going to say, oh my god, where was this deck the whole time? Why did nobody
Yes.
play this at the Invitational? Why
Yep.
did etc. Yep.
The other thing is, I think the meta is going to slow down. I think what's going to happen is people are going to find counters to the Patriarch deck, and once that happens, and then there's a wider diversity of decks floating around, I think the meta will slow down. And once the meta slows down, then it's open to a whole pile of decks.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
All
think my
right.
deck actually gets even better once the
Yes,
meta slows
exactly.
down.
A lot of decks are going to get better. Control decks are going to become much more viable. And I don't know how well you guys know me. I'm a control player. For me to play this Weirwood deck in the top 8 was in the Invitational was a tough choice for me that I did not want to actually have to make. I felt sort of forced into it because I didn't have a lot of time to figure things out, and it was what I sort of stumbled across early and realized it was really strong. But I'm a control guy. I don't want to have to rely on, well, if I don't draw this Weirwood here, I'm in big trouble. That's why I made mine so diverse and didn't go all in on the Patriarchs, because I don't like those kind of lists.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the same. And I did play a control deck. It just didn't work out for me this time.
Yep. So let's see if there are any questions from our audience.
Okay. I think I saw that Imrahil was back, right?
Yes,
So
he is.
maybe if he can corral some questions.
That's what I'm hoping. So we have Ogre MKB who says, "What do you think will be a top deck in the standard tournament this evening?"
Okay, well that's a good question because this evening is a very different tournament from this past weekend. There's a lot less on the line when it comes down to it. And
Yep.
I know a bunch of players are planning on playing Johnny Appleseed that, played serious decks in the Invitational. Not that Johnny Appleseed can't be a serious deck, that's not what I'm saying. But
Why don't you expand briefly on what Johnny Appleseed is?
Johnny Appleseed is the deck that is built entirely with the plan of getting a level 3 Leafkin in play on turn 1.2. That is the goal.
That sounds pretty strong.
It's incredibly strong. I don't think it's probably ever lost a game where you accomplish that, to be honest.
Yes. That's
Because I don't think that can be beaten flat out. But
yeah, it
it
sounds
doesn't
like a tough
happen
one.
that often.
Right,
You need the
exactly.
cards in the right order.
If it happens, you're in business, and then if it doesn't happen, then you're not in business.
Yeah, definitely. In our game right now, you are not in business.
No,
That's
I'm in some trouble.
Yep.
I'm definitely in some trouble. I do trade off your one Scorch main to leave you with only one Scorch main.
Oh, good. Only the big one.
Yeah, only a level 3. No biggie.
Yeah.
Let's see. So my prediction on tonight, I don't really know. I think we'll see a ton of the stuff from the tournament this weekend because I think this is people's first shot to really play this in a serious environment who weren't in the tournament and have some fun with it. So I think we'll see a lot of those decks.
Oh yeah, there'll definitely be, I think, a lot of UA for sure.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to be on that, all over that.
I agree.
So be ready for that if you're planning on playing tonight.
Yes, for sure. UA should be well represented. See, somebody asked me, after making top 8, would you change anything about your deck? I would. I really don't like generals in the deck. I thought I loved generals in the deck, and the more I've played it, the more I do not actually like generals in the deck. So they would come out. I would also add a third gargoyle. I got my third gargoyle the night before the event. I had been testing with 2 all along, and just said, okay, I don't really know what to do here. The deck's doing well with 2. I don't play the gargoyle that much. I won't add it. The problem is the gargoyle is really good for NT control because it's more variety of threats that they have to deal with.
Yeah, he demands a Dreadbolt, and that's not usually a card that they're looking to level up right now.
Exactly, and so that's why I feel like that could be a good choice. And I also put in a secret card. I put in a jetpack into my build.
Sneaky. Good word.
Yeah, so we'll see. So let's see if there's any more questions. Here we go. Here's a question. Avalek mentions, remember a couple of months ago when everyone decided that Utera was basically unplayable. The patch really changed that.
That did in fact happen.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's funny how Grow Wide was not very viable until you throw in. Basically, I feel like this is like the old Packmaster where you didn't have to activate him. This is like the new Packmaster. You don't have to activate this Packmaster. You just play it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think he's better, flat out.
Yes.
So they may end up doing something about that because obviously they changed Packmaster, but
Yep. Exactly. We'll have to see because he's the wirewood is really good. Like I know I'm saying things like, yeah, I don't think it's broken or anything, but it is very good. I will say that. And look at this. I'm not sure how much you like Zemus, but I like him a lot.
apparently you really like Zemus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
yeah. I can't even move the dragon.
Yeah, that's why I did it like that.
Tiny grabs.
All right, so we have another question.
Okay.
Vonnet says you play it, level it up, then play Lightning Brand, so you're able to activate it again. Yes. Okay, so that's not a question. That's his statement on how would you get
on the Leafkin Blitz business. Yeah.
exactly.
I am dead. Thanks
Yeah, I
for
like the
that,
sound of that.
by the way.
Remember
Really
when
thought
you
I had
declared
this one.
that I was dead?
I really thought I had this
Do
one.
you remember that? I remember that.
Yeah, well, you played 3 level 3 Zemuses since that point.
Yeah, no, that'll happen when you got Gox going crazy and drawing a million cards.
That only really happened one turn, though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I just had to
just-
throw that out and see if you would refute that argument.
I
But you
have to
did.
refute that argument.
Very well. All right, are there any more questions? Because if there are not, then we will call the podcast a day. We'll take like 3 or 4 more questions if you do have any. I'm looking through here. I am not seeing any right now.
Oh, there's G4MR. Yes, you can still sign up for the Reddit tournament. I think you can sign up until 4 o'clock today is the cutoff.
All right. Let's see. I think I have to play a Metamine to try to get my 4th Zemus on the board before the screenshot.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
No.
No
See,
die
this is
take.
probably going to be the new background of the stream. Beating Jake with
Beating
3
Jake with
Zymus
Giant pile
on
of
the board.
Zymus.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm happy for you.
So, Vanath would like to know if there are more Android beta invites. I don't know. I'm trying to put together some local tournaments, and in order to do so, my friends need beta invites because they all have Android devices, and that's why they are not playing the game yet. And so I had them put in their requests, and they haven't actually heard back yet. So I'm a little bit worried. I don't know what's happening with that.
Interesting.
Hopefully it'll be soon. Lazy Jim asks, what is your favorite deck from this weekend that wasn't yours? Let's start with you. What's your favorite deck, Jake, from the weekend?
Favorite deck that wasn't mine. I don't know if I even understand the question. Why would I
think
like
they're
a different
saying,
deck?
what decks did you really like that you saw this weekend?
Yeah, I just don't understand why I would like anybody else's deck.
Gotcha. 'Cause you're the
Why
best. I forgot, you're the best. You're
Yeah,
self-proclaimed the best.
would I want somebody else's deck? I think I really liked anything with 3 Thunder Swords in it because I did not have that option, and I really wanted to play with Thunder Swords, but it didn't line up. Also, 2 Thunder Swords. I mean, I liked your deck list a lot. Obviously, that's the one we were testing with, so I liked that one a lot. Even though you didn't have 3 until like 6 hours after the registration deadline, you got your 3rd Thunder Sword. Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
The funny thing is, I don't think I would have added a 3rd one.
No, I think you would have added it whether it was correct or not. Whether it was the right color or not aside, I think you probably would have added it.
That may be. I might have just put it in, but now, like when I made my new version of the deck, I didn't add the 3rd one. I felt like 2 was actually the right number, because it shouldn't just be a pain to use them.
Yep.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 3 is the right number. I don't know what my favorite deck that wasn't mine was. I really like. I wish I could have tested more the Necrium Utera versions of
the Patriarch decks.
the Patriarchs. Yeah, I didn't see anyone run a Shambler deck. Had I, it would have been my favorite deck for sure.
Oh yeah, easy call.
I did like PTK's deck. I wish he would have had a better game against me so I could have seen it in action, because I didn't get to see his earlier games.
Yep.
It just didn't seem to work against me, and it looked like a cool deck.
It is cool. I'm always torn on those decks because they are cool and they do really interesting things. But I always feel like if the game isn't going your way, then the deck has way too many cute things in it. And it just does you don't end up being able to pull back and
Yeah,
come back from a losing board.
I agree. Anytime I see a list with Windcaller Shaman in it, I wince, and I
Yeah, he's the
say,
card that I'm really torn on because he does such cool things, but you have to level him, and he's not a card that I actually want to put into play on my side of the board, you know?
yes, I totally agree. And it's like when I saw his list, I winced in two ways. I said, ooh, this does not seem like a top level list. And then I also said, oh, if he gets that full combo of like Doomwing, move him over, Windcaller him, it's just going to be a total blowout.
Total, because he can just wipe the board entirely for free.
Yeah.
But
And so I was both terrified and thinking like, okay, maybe I'll be okay. But I like the idea. It's something I've been working on as well. I can't wait. I actually was contacted and told, I get a free legendary for getting the top 8, and I chose my Phoenix, so I'll have 2. And so hopefully I can pull 1 at some point in the next week or so, have a
not
full
gonna
set,
happen.
and really start
Not
making
gonna happen.
some Phoenix decks.
I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen.
Wow. Don't make
Yeah.
me come over to your house and do terrible things to you. So we have another question from Excalibur Stream. What do you
Okay.
think about creating add-ons to calculate percentages for the likelihood of draw X? I know Du Bois has one of these. It
I was
looks
gonna
really
say the
cool.
boy has a tool built onto his stream interface where he tracks, cards that have been leveled and then opponent percentage odds to hit a level 2 in every given hand, etc.
Yep.
He keeps all those stats. So I've actually thought about asking him for it because his tool is really good.
Yeah, me too. I think I am going to, just to see if it can help me think differently
Yeah.
about how I'm playing the game. One thing you need to be doing already is tracking what cards your opponents are playing, what they can draw into, and so it would help to know this. Now, what do I think about it for like a tournament setting? Do I think it's wrong in some way? I don't, because it's an online game. My theory is something like whatever you can have at your disposal, I guess, is okay because it's an online game. There's really no way to regulate that.
Yep.
So if you tried to regulate that, I think it would be a problem because it would put people at a serious advantage if they were going against the regulation. So I guess in that way I'm okay with it. In theory, I'm not really okay with it. I would rather no one used anything, but in practice, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, you might start running into a problem if it was a program that pulls all that data from Solforge as you play automatically, because then you're accessing their files.
Right.
But as it is, he enters it himself, and I mean, I do the same thing in my head.
Right.
I round the numbers instead of using the exact percentages, but I'm doing exactly what that thing is doing anyways in my head as I play. So
Yep.
you can do it on a piece of paper beside you too, and like, who's gonna stop you when it comes down to it?
Yep, I started in some games leading up to the tournament, and I didn't really do this in the tournament because I just didn't really have time. Was tracking removal spells that people had played in an Excel spreadsheet instead of
Yep.
just in my head, so I didn't have to keep going back in the log. So I'd be like, okay, he played a Cull 1, he played a Spark 1, and then on level 2 he played that Cull 2 and a Dreadbolt 1, and so I could just at a glance look over and see that.
Yep, for sure.
And so I'm not sure how much I like that. First of all, it splits my attention, which is a problem. And second of all, I'm not a big fan of having some sort of notes during games. I feel like it makes you a little less sharp if you do that, but I don't know.
Oh
I don't have
yeah, I
experience.
remember. Yeah, we discussed that once. You're not a fan of the notes during games,
Yeah,
which
my
is
tournaments
interesting
that I've
because I
played-
come from Magic, and everybody takes notes.
I-
You get to view your opponent's hand, you write it down on your life total pad in front of you, and then
Yeah, it's so funny because I didn't even know people did that. I've never, like, I look at my opponent's hands all the time in other games I'm playing, and I don't think you're allowed to do that. No one's ever done it. I mean, I play in World Championships, and no one has ever written anything down.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit different because Magic has all that prize money and stuff all over the place.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
All right,
I don't know if it's not allowed in your game or
I
if
think it
if
is
it's
not
something
allowed,
else.
but I'm
Yeah.
not
Okay.
entirely positive.
Yeah.
So let's see. So Demo Evolve says, agree or disagree, Stoneblade is targeting the game to be decided by turn 6, except in rare cases.
Um. I mean, I think I both agree and disagree. To be honest, I think the way the format is right now, it's very fast, and a lot of games are being decided by turn six. But I know in the previous format before the patch, the game was definitely almost never decided by turn six because Shapers almost exclusively won in player level 3 or 4, and most of that damage was in player level 3 or 4 when the Flame Shaper 3 came down and bursted the other guy for 50 damage. Like, and you had no idea when that was coming, except that it was going to be later in the game.
Right.
So I think once the format slows down again, then we'll get that impression of turn six being a deciding point less, and being more focused on the mid game, which I think that's where they want it, is somewhere in player level 2, maybe a little bit later than turn six. Definitely not in player level 1 because that's not fun for anybody.
I get the feeling that they want it to be like more like turn 10 through 12. That's the feeling I get, and that I think this meta is an aberration.
Yeah, I think this meta has been pushed a lot by the circumstances, and I think it will scale itself back with a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think this is not quite as fast as they want it to be. I feel like this is a little too fast.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as the Shapers were kind of annoying, I liked that speed of a meta better. It felt like there was more. Like, if you're going to have a leveling mechanic, I don't think they want a game that ends in player level 2, right?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
they need it. Like, they need these level 3 cards to be relevant.
Yeah, for sure. I like the dynamic in the Shaper meta more because, Shapers was a deck that was planning on sacrificing its player level 1 essentially to have a stronger player level 2 and 3.
Yep.
And you could target that weakness with other decks that were strong in player level 1, like Utera decks at the time,
Mm-hmm.
to try and counteract its game plan and take advantage of the fact that it was going to have a weak player level 1. And so there was that interesting dynamic between decks. Whereas right now, everyone is jamming player level 1 so hard that whoever gets the better draw a lot of the time is just going to win.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting seeing the old NT Shaper deck in this meta, and to see
I
if
think it would be very interesting.
I know it could be really balanced actually.
I've argued both sides of whether Shapers would dominate or not
Yeah,
at this point.
I agree because
Yeah.
it could go either way. Like if that UA deck gets its nut draw, I think it just crushes a Shaper deck.
Yeah.
But if it only gets a middling draw and a Shaper gets a middling draw, I think Shaper probably has the advantage, but I'm not really sure.
I think Shapers would in that situation because Shapers is going to wreck the board in player level 2 as long as it isn't dead.
Yes, true. All right, so another question we have is M or Murphy asks how to handle Krogius plus Jetpack. Should I put 3 Botanimate or 3 Dreadbolt in my decks?
How should I handle Krogius plus Jetpack? That is that's not a question I think about on a day-to-day
Yeah, I mean,
basis.
I'm not laughing because it's a ridiculous question. I'm laughing because I've literally never seen that happen.
I can't say I've ever jetpacked a Krogius.
Yeah, I've never done it. I've never seen anyone do it. I've never even heard of anyone doing it. So this is the first I have heard of this.
Okay, but I mean, if you are having a problem with that, as I'm assuming you must be because you asked, um, yeah, I mean, Dreadbolt and Botanimate are both good answers to Krogius when it comes down to it. You have to level them to match the Krogius. But if you see a Krogius or suspect that your opponent is leveling a Krogius behind the scenes with Technosmith or Oracle or whatever, then yeah, you should level those cards and you should be ready for them. And if they burn a jetpack on them for a bonus 3 damage, then all the better value, right?
Yeah, I think he's thinking more like
Well,
in
the movement
case
and the breakthrough.
in case they block it with something big, you move
Yeah,
over.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would say similar things. Basically your deck either has to be so fast it doesn't need removal, or you have to have some sort of removal. So if you're playing a deck that's slow enough to where Krogus is going to beat you, and you're not running removal, that's a mistake. Fix that. If you are running the removal, like Jake said, level that removal. Whenever you see them play Oracles and Technosmiths, even if there's not anything to level your removal on, you have to be leveling it unless you're going to win by like 3.2 or something.
Yeah, winning in response to them leveling a creature like that is also an option. And I think there was another question later in the chat about how Scrapforge Titan is his biggest problem in draft, which is also definitely a concern because he's very powerful in draft, and it's the same concept here. If you see them leveling that kind of stuff, or playing a Scrapforge or playing a Krogius, start empty laning your high power creatures. Forget your game plan. Put your 7 power creatures into empty lanes and go and kill the guy.
Yeah.
Because he has played a card that does nothing. You just leave that 1/1 Scrapforge there, play beside him, and kill his life total.
Yeah, he basically gave you a free play. That's what it comes down
It's free card advantage because that 1/1 or that it's a 1/1 in both cases, does nothing.
Yep.
It's a 1-turn chump block at best at some point, and you're going to avoid that even if you can. Make him replace that card at some point. Take the 1 every turn. Empty lane your guys and kill his life total, and he will be at a low life total, best case scenario, by the time you get to player level 3. And it won't even matter if he draws a Krogius or a Scrapforge, because you'll continue empty laning stuff and you'll kill him.
Yep. So that really is the two ways. You either level the removal or you kill him.
Yep.
All right, so Kid Nut would like to know, what is the best counter to Senior Blowout?
Senior Blowout. There are no good counters to Senior Blowout. You either get blown out, or don't let the board set up for that.
Yes.
Try and do a combat always on your turn, and if you don't have that option, try and play stuff in empty lanes. I know it's hard if the other guy has a good draw and he has all 5 lanes full, and at that point you're dead to Senior Blowout is what you are.
Yeah.
But
like you said, if you can't just stick guys in front of robots if they haven't seen Sentinels on a player level yet, because they're going to blow you out. It's just as simple
they're
as that.
going to blow you out. It's going to happen. He is, one of the biggest blowouts in the whole game for sure. That's how he got his name. But yeah, empty lane your guys and trade damage, because if you're empty laning guys and attempting to just push damage, then Senior Blowout does nothing unless you can get combat against your guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, if and that's what I found, that the best players against this just don't block those robots. They take the 4, the 3, and the 5. They take that to the face, and then next turn when those guys are active, they just come down, kill them outright. Don't let yourself get blown out. If you let yourself get blown out, you're gonna get blown out.
Yep. Oh, okay, that's a good point, Immerhill in chat. Bright Steel Sentinel is Senior Blowout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
Someone was asking that, yeah.
Yep, that is true. Bright Steel Sentinel is the blowout guy because he gives all the robots armor, so that when you stick your guys in front of them, when they're on defensive, you're on defensive, it comes around to their turn, they play their Sentinel, they give everyone tons of armor, they destroy your whole board, and none of their guys die.
Yeah.
And then they win, because then they roar them and do crazy things like that and win.
Yeah. If you do get blown up by him, you almost always lose. It's just,
Yes, sometimes. Like I've had a bunch of games, especially against Seoman, where I think he did 4 Senior Blowouts in one game against me.
Wow.
I think I ended up losing it, but it was incredibly close.
It was far closer than it should have been, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how close it actually was. Well, guys, I think that's all we're going to do today. So thanks for tuning in to the podcast. And stay tuned next time for another edition of Forging Champions.